Roll call.
Steve Topaz.
You want to hit your mic?
Steve Topaz.
Doug Morton.
Rick Scholl.
Jenny Carlson.
And Keith Locke. And we have John Walsh, our main guy,
And we have our budget.
and our budget director, Matt, with us. And Jenny
Don't forget about Jacob over there.
and Jacob.
Hi, Jacob.
We try and forget about Jacob.
No, I can never forget about Jacob.
So, do we want to leave elections the way it is, or you want new officers?
I think with you potentially out the door, I think it's time to pick new officer, new chair.
Or, well, we can just move Jenny up as chair.
Yes,
By my recommendation.
I'm okay with that.
So I move that we appoint Jenny as chair of the,
I think I have to do that.
As
You can do
chair, you
that.
can't do that.
I think I have to do that. I move to move Councilor Carlson as chair of the Urban Renewal.
I second that.
okay, been a motion to elect Jenny Carlson as chair of the Urban Renewal Agency. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Except you didn't vote.
Nay.
Reluctantly, I think she accepted.
I'm good.
So now we got to do chair meeting. You do it from now on.
I would like to make a motion that we have Councilor Morton as vice
Vice
chair.
chair, yeah. I would second that. Deb,
You want to second that? She's
Yeah,
chair now.
I'll second it.
Okay.
can't keep up.
Couldn't do it 2 seconds ago.
There you go. Consent agenda for approval, minutes
Oh,
dated.
there's a motion on the floor
Oh,
for
call for the
Counselor.
vote. Sorry.
And it's seconded.
yes.
Motion been made and seconded.
Yeah,
All those in favor?
discussion.
There's no discussion, Doug.
There
You're
is
it.
too. I don't like the guy.
Of dissension in the ranks.
He does have a lot of gray hair.
Yep.
Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none? Motion passed.
All right.
Consent agenda for approval, or no, consent agenda for approval, minutes dated September 5th, 2018.
Make a motion, we approve consent agenda for approval, minutes dated September 5th, 2018.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Public comment. Hearing none. Discussion action items, resolution UR004, adopting the 2019-2020 budget as presented.
Move we adopt resolution number UR004.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Administrative report. Is that you?
That's me.
Oh.
Yeah, the
It doesn't have a little notation next to it. Doesn't have
a
that.
name and a
Doesn't have an M or a J next to
time
it.
marker either.
Yeah.
But, I think if you look at the meeting minutes from last year, this time, they're pretty spot on with this. The project or the agency is very much in its infancy. It's in a growing phase, and there's really not meaningful amount of revenue to really move forward with big projects. And, really. We've done all the steps we can. We have the plan, the report, the projects. They're all, at some point, the impacts of this delay in funding, we're going to have to come back and revisit, and we'll do that when there's sufficient funds and enough to see how it affects the long-term plan.
I had a question, just since it never appears on the other agenda, and since I have the microphone and the hammer, I can say.
Anything you
We
want.
Oh,
keep-
your head just went.
we keep talking about investment in attracting businesses and attracting industry. And is it the role of this body to look at what are we doing to attract business? What are we doing to court industry to get it here? What do we need to do to bring those partners to the table? And is that the role of this agency to look at the city, to look at the county partners, to look at the port and say, to hold some people accountable, regional partners, state partners, whatever, because, you know, we've been just bleeding jobs. And, you know, street signs and street improvements aside, people need jobs. And I think it's the role, it would be silly to sit here and look at this budget at $50,000 a year and not talk about what is our plan to make sure it's not $50,000 4 years from now. You know, we have to move the ball. We need to have a plan, and I don't know whether that's a discussion to ask staff to look at whether we need a lobbyist, whether we need a marketing campaign, whether we need incentives to get businesses here, something. Because I don't see any new industry coming to our town in the last 10 years. That's like, we have to do something different because what we're doing is not working.
So it's so difficult because we are moving so slowly, but we are moving forward on our industrial property, the only industrial property the city owns. And some people cry out, city shouldn't own property, but at least we're moving forward with it. Delineating the wetlands, going through to the Department of State Lands for a review. I mean, it just takes, that's been what, 6 months? Over 6 months.
Yep.
Over 6 months.
Yep.
So.
I think the short answer is yes, absolutely. Your urban renewal agency is an economic development tool that you can use to achieve goals, primarily through infrastructure projects.
I just wanted to have
Facade
a
programs.
conversation in this framework because with students here, we have a citizen here that comes every time and says, what are you doing? We made this list.
Yeah.
And cares about his community. And he's like, to just look at this and rubber stamp it and not say, we're trying, we're moving forward, we've got this, we've got to get these things in place. And we're still looking at this other avenues. We're still working with the port. We're still trying to work with the county economic development team and all avenues to bring jobs and to bring economic development to our community, more than just signs and street improvements, but jobs and economic vitality.
As an agency, do we have the ability to go after grants, or we just paperwork?
I think the urban renewal is our tool of
Mhm.
choice, isn't it?
Yes.
Right.
But
We
we're,
can go after grants,
but we
though.
are
Yes,
able
we
to go
can.
after grants, yes.
Is there a grant? This is my question, and not that I'm putting you on the spot, and if you say, Jane, don't do this, I have to look.
Don't do this.
There are other agencies, not us, not the city, not for economic development, but other agencies that have kind of like the Main Street person, where you have a specific project that's time limited, that is a specific task. Is there something like that for urban renewal, for economic development? Because we
It's
discovered,
called a property manager.
I know it's not. Last year, we discovered that we'd won this kind of award as being economically depressed so many quarters in a row. We had a special delineation of economic hardship. I remember seeing that in some report. But does that give us an opportunity with that kind of information to go after a grant that would fund somebody to help us get this going? Is that a strategy? Is that like you're crazy that funding doesn't exist? I mean, a lobbyist or a marketer or economic development person or somebody that would help us jumpstart this, time limited,
Yeah.
that be like, get this going, and then we take it over.
Just to be clear, so you're asking if there's funding for programming, like like personnel.
Administrative pursuits, yes.
Right, like AmeriCorps, RARE, those kind of things
Sure.
that do those grants. Is there that kind of thing? Could you write that as a rural economic development, given the amount of jobs we've lost, that we could get our own person, time limited, a go-getter to do a marketing campaign or something to just switch it up?
Yeah, I don't know of a program, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Well, we have CSET, we have, the port are our two main drivers. The port is the main driver of economic development. They just are, period, point blank. That's who runs economic development and entices people to come in. So like Jenny, I think what I hear Councilor Carlson saying is like if we went after grants like and we needed matching, the urban renewal can be that funding mechanism, right? In the future.
Absolutely, yeah.
So like if Ray from the state wanted to give us hypothetically $1 million to go down Castor Road and do that, and we found other monies available with that, and we needed matching funds, we could pull them out of the urban renewal, right?
Yep.
Because it does fall within that district, and it has to stay within the district, just so people out there listening know what we're talking about. The highlighted areas, the map that was handed around earlier, has to fall in those areas. No matter what, cannot deviate from the plan of that area.
So I guess my
I think-
soft answer is, if in the next, before we meet again, which we only meet once a year, twice a year at best, is if we could have, maybe just keep our ears open to those kinds of opportunities, League of Oregon Cities, Mayor's Conference, those kinds of things. How are other people accessing resources to help with this kind of thing? Because obviously the city can't hire somebody to do something that's short term. We don't have that kind of budget, but it's like there has to be a way, to just get creative to help us get off this starting block.
Well, we certainly don't pigeonhole ourselves so that we meet once a year. That
No,
to
but
me
I mean,
is
because
that
there-
is, well, let me finish. That is why we went with the council as a controlling body, so that we have the flexibility to meet when called for. So we can certainly put that on the table and put that on the radar screen. And when issues come up, we simply call a meeting. I mean, you're the chairman, you're here the entire time, and meeting at 6:30 or 6:45, even possibly before our council meetings, is why we kept it with the council.
Well,
In my mind.
do you think that it would be appropriate, or do you think to have in an official capacity? I noticed the port has been reporting in our meetings in an official capacity to have representatives from those people that are supposed to be advocating for economic development, and kind of like, let's get it out there. What are you doing? What do we need to do to move this forward? And have them in a real space and say, what are you doing? CSET, Colpack, whoever it is, and say, let's get it out there. How do we work together for the greater good of everybody? Because it doesn't matter to me whether the economic development directly benefits me, as long as it benefits my community. And it benefits everybody. As soon as
So
there's
what-
investment, it
I can
helps us
certainly
all.
get a hold of Chuck Daugherty tonight after this meeting and talk to him and say, hey, we need some help with our urban renewal. And I'm sure Rick, when he goes down to a Colpack meeting, he can talk to Mary or anyone else and get that going as well. Those are two good ideas. Yeah, we
I
need to
would-
get that out
I
there.
would say be patient. Be patient. It's tough, and I'll just say it, and everybody's here dancing around it. It's tough to watch Scappoose and Class 9 be the two focus areas right now, and St. Helens have 4 mills at one time and not have nothing left. And it's really tough to see CSET focused and the port focused on Scappoose, and also the port very focused on Port Westward and the rezoning. And St. Helens is like on a little island out here, and the only industrial property we have is far from being ready.
But I
So
don't have
that's
the
what
number.
you're trying to say.
Right, but I don't
mean,
know
but
the
you-
number. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I could get the number. But it's literally like hundreds of millions of dollars been spent in our region on economic development, and none of it has benefited us. None of it. And I'm like, I think it's just time to have a real conversation. So a year from now, we can say, it's not just approval of the minutes, it's we did this, we did this, we did this, that we continued the dialogue.
So we have an opportunity zone, and we're finding out more about it. We're in the opportunity zone, and there's potential tax breaks for investors. So that's a benefit for us. So we need to talk. We should probably, and Kathy, it's here. I'll bring it up later. That we should probably start looking into more opportunity zones. John's familiar with it. We met with Mary and the Colpack people, and I did the presentation, and that information should be available now too. It was supposed to be late April. Yep.
One of the things that I get in some of the journals I pick up, there are advertisements, put your plant here in Mississippi or whatever. And every year they come up with how much the states have to help get new businesses. Mississippi, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, they have offices attached to the governor or the state, and they have a fairly good and fairly large PR system. And Oregon basically had none. So, is there anything that we have from the state that's reaching out to these national magazines? Hey, why don't you locate here? Or is it, as these magazines that I've seen really show, no real help from the state?
Yeah, I think it's definitely more information to gather for a future meeting. Just to what Councilor Morton says, there's nothing that says that we have to only have a budget meeting. We can, gather more information, get back to staff, and decide whether we're going to meet in July or whether we're going to meet in August, and talk about other resources, other opportunities, and what we need to do to move forward, what the next steps are. Just to keep having the dialogue. Our citizens want to know that we're working on it, that I think that the other economic development teams want to know that we're interested and we haven't forgotten. And just keep having the conversation.
Yeah, I think the best bet is just to keep the eye on the prize and do the slow grind there. It's not instant gratification, and it's not easy, and we need it now more than ever. And it's not going to happen overnight. That's unfortunate. It's just the way it is.
We gotta keep pushing before
Yep,
we're 80.
when we will. We have been.
So, that's all I have. You done? Or do you have more?
Well, I was just gonna kind of try to wrap that around to the, economic development. I mean, urban renewal is a tool, is part of an overall economic development strategy, and there's a lot of inputs to that. And to the extent urban renewal is typically related to projects, investments in projects to try to create tax increment. One of the things I think we're doing really well that some other agencies and plans don't do as well is that our focus is on investments that create tax growth. So that the agency succeeds. We're not building fire stations and buying trucks and some of those kinds of things that don't have a direct connection to tax growth. And as the agency gets more fiscally healthy, it has the ability to take on some administrative pieces, so you can have an agency director that's funded out of that, has a little bit less burden on the general fund. So that's some of those staff positions can, to the extent they work in the agency, can kind of split those costs across out of general fund and into these kinds of things, and it kind of starts to grow, and
It feeds itself.
and the way that it grows, it starts to almost geometric at some point when you start getting new tax coming on. But
Yeah, it's
It
pretty
kind of reminds me of like when you're trying to find your entry level job to get the experience, and if you just can't quite get your foot in the door, so you keep searching for that first job, and then once you finally do get it and you get that experience, it's much easier and a lot of doors open up. It's like we're just trying to get that initial capital in our agency to help leverage for additional funds, and once we do, it's going to expand and grow because it's just going to build. So
And there's stuff happening in the district. I don't know if you talked about that
We
early
did,
on,
little
but
bit.
it's
Yeah.
we've seen some of it, like Legacy, and there's permits running its course for more, and potentially other things going on behind the scenes that we can see. So
What do you know?
Will Legacy come online before July 1st?
Yes. They have a grand opening.
So they'll
been
be
invited
on,
to ribbon
they'll be
cutting.
on next year's taxes then,
I would assume so. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we've
But the apartments are probably the year after.
Yeah. I mean, the apartments, that's 18 buildings. And so it's, they're not going to build them all at
Right,
once. They're going to
right.
do one building at a time. And I don't know how long that's going to take to build out. But, that's 7-8 acres of
Yep.
a lot of investment. And that's just 2 projects.
Right.
anyways, that's it. So we're adjourned.
Okay.
Then you need to reset for
So now we're not till 6